It won't be months, it won't be weeks, it will be Wednesday. That was the quote from Ange Postecoglou before we played Swansea. But the real question is now, are we seeing AngeBall or not? We're going to break it down. Let's get into the video. Afternoon guys, hope you're doing well and welcome to another video. You guys were saying yesterday on Grumpy Old Reds that you like the heat maps, that you like the graphs and stats and everything, and you know what? So do I. So I kind of started thinking to myself, Ange has made this claim about by Wednesday we would have seen AngeBall. But are we really seeing AngeBall right now? So we're going to get right into that. As always, please do, if you're enjoying the content, hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed as well if you're new. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram. We're coming up to, I think, 4K followers there. So if you guys are on Instagram and want your daily Forest content and updates, it's on there. It's on Twitter. It's on Facebook. Make sure you're following us on all the platforms. Scan that QR code or click on the link. Okay, so is this AngeBall? Is this AngeBall? Well, we're going to have a comparison to Ange at Spurs versus Ange at Forest. And yes, we are working with a very small sample size when it comes to the Forest side of things, but are we seeing any development of AngeBalls? And then the question is AngeBall what we need and what we want at Forest? So what I want to do first, I want to show you a comparison here of the setup. So I've got it lined up here. Now I've tried to find some comparable games. Obviously, as I just mentioned, there's a small sample size with Forest. So this was our game on the right-hand side on players' average positions when it was against Sunderland. And on the left-hand side, I've got Spurs playing Sheffield United a while back. I think they won it 2-1 then. But it's kind of comparable to promoted teams and early doors and what have you. And just on the layout, you can see that there's already kind of formations and average positions that are playing out here. If you look at Spurs, there was always two centre-backs in their own half. So you had, that's Mickey van der Ven and that's Romero, right? And then you had the number 6 just holding in and around the halfway line. And if you have a look at the fullbacks, this is where there is definitely a slight difference. You've got here, I think that's Udogie, who was their left back there. He's in a very comparable position to over here in Zinchenko. But what we're seeing a variation of, and we did discuss this a little last night, but it's kind of interesting to see, is the right fullback. So Nico Williams versus here, I think it's Pedro Porro. You can see here that Ange was inverting both fullbacks in AngeBall, and that's been roughly his setup throughout his career, that both the fullbacks would look to come in and create that box effect in the midfield. But at Forest, he's basically put Nico Williams, and if we do it on Heatmaps, it's quite interesting. He's an up and down fullback. And then here with Porro, you can see the curvature here is all around this box area, the main parts. And he never really got as far back as Nico Williams did. But again, that could be because they're playing Sheffield United, etc., right? But in terms of the shape and the formation, that's already a big thing that sticks out to me, is the right-sided fullback. Now, are we going to see Nico Williams developing into a more inverted fullback under Ange or not? Time will tell. I actually say leave Nico Williams to do what he's doing right now. Don't mess with it too much. But the other difference you see is the spread of the attacking lineup. At Spurs here, you've got, who would that have been, 21, I think it's Kulusevski as the right wing. Son was playing in the middle, Maddison in the 10, and who's 27, Solomon, I think it is, or something, right? So they're playing higher up the pitch, and they're leaving a lot of space in this midfield. And this is something that a lot of Spurs fans would complain about, that basically the midfield was just a gap. You'd have these two centre-backs, then two midfielders, a huge chasm of a gulf, and then the attackers were just kind of gun-ho. He's changing that as well. It's very much more compact when you look at the Forest one. So you've got here, you've got Dominguez, you got Anderson, you got McAtee, and you had Chris Wood dropping deep. Now, I think if that was Igor Jesus, we may have seen him slightly higher because Chris Wood's natural tendency is to drop down to find the ball. And in essence, you had nearly both the wingers playing slightly higher than your attacker here, whereas at Spurs, it was only the right-sided winger. Okay, so there's nuances in the difference. Now, which is better is the question. I think this setup is slightly better because you are compacting out that midfield more. You're not leaving that huge gap between defense and attack, and it's a little more balanced. But we haven't quite seen it produce on the pitch yet. Obviously, he still hasn't been able to get his first win. And then when we look at the patterns of these wingers, you can see again, the wingers are more natural wingers, if that makes sense when it comes to Ange. As my screen decides to move, let's just bring that back up for you guys. And then the same on the other side. They're playing high up the pitch, no real signs of defense. Okay, so the majority of the work is in the opposition half, no one getting back. And in fact, let's just leave that one on so we can do a side-by-side comparison. You can see that Backwell was playing more as a touchline winger, not too much on the inside. You can see here there's kind of empty gaps where he wasn't playing, whereas Kulusevski was floating and inverting into the middle. Now, this is something I think that needs to change, especially if you're using Backwell. Backwell is a winger that does like to invert, cut in on his left foot and create chances. So on that right-hand side, you're seeing differences, as well as Backwell was coming back and doing a lot of defensive work. I would argue sometimes that was just Backward being backward and just, doing his backward thing, running back, Bonnie Tyler settings and what have you. But, it will come, I think. Now, on the other side of it, if we look here, the left-sided wingers are quite similar, where a lot of the work here for Callum Hudson-Odoi was done in the opposition half, and the same here with Solomon in the opposition half on the left-hand side. A bit of sporadic defending here. But this is a problem we're having for me on this left-hand side. If you look at Hudson-Odoi, because he's not been told to track back, look at this huge space we leave here on the left-hand side of our pitch. And if I bring up Zinchenko, most of his work is being done here and not too much defensively. I think that's something that Ange needs to address, this huge chasm on the left-hand side. So that's the comparisons there. Now, in terms of the midfield players, so if we look at the number 6, even though obviously it's number 8 here, you can see a lot of the work is done in the middle. And if we bring Dominguez, it's kind of similar, but not as much going forward. So what we're seeing the change is that, Ange is asking for the holder to hold a bit more. And in both games, both the teams were having the majority of the possession and majority of the chances, right? But still here, and yes, with Dominguez, it was only 45 minutes. But still, most of his work is done in that middle third to first third, rather than here where I think is Basuma off the top of my head, is literally playing like a box-to-box 8, even though he's the 6 in that position. So I think there are some subtle changes. And again, I think it's early days in terms of what we're seeing with Ange Postecoglou. But it does look, and I know to the eye it hasn't looked, if there's been defensive discipline and all that, but there are subtle changes in the style and the allocation and roles of the players as well. But what I want to do now is a quick comparison between AngeBall and Nuno Ball. Okay, so let's have a direct comparison. Now, I'll tell you off the bat, it's hard to do a direct comparison because Forest haven't played Sunderland last year under Nuno and etc. But this, for me, is more of a generic Nuno shape. This was against the draw with Liverpool, obviously a harder team, I get that. And this was at the City ground, and it's still the same one there with the Sunderland game because the sample size is small. But we'll keep kind of referring back to this throughout the season. So as you can see already, there's a massive difference where you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people averaging in our own half, and then 4 in the opposition half under Nuno. With Ange, it's 2.5 players versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6.5 players. So a massive difference already. You have to take in the whole Liverpool thing. But you can see it's more kind of compact and organised with Nuno. You got your fullbacks kind of playing as fullbacks. So that would have been Nico Williams there. Ola Aina there doing a lot of defensive work in the fullback positions. And then you've got your 6s there who are doing a lot of work again in our own half and then kind of gathering forward. And then Ryan Yates the same there. Elanga, on the other hand, was getting all over the pitch, which he was doing, but mainly out wide. And then sometimes he would switch across. We saw that kind of weird thing happening last season with him. And then Hudson-Odoi, an orthodox, you would say, left winger there, getting back as well. And then, as always, Chris Woods, I've just got to click on him there. He averages deeper than Morgan Gibbs-White in a lot of the games you see under Nuno. So tactically, it's more organised, but the main thing I want to show you here is the shape and the high and backwards of it, high line for life stuff. There's clearly a difference when it comes to that. Which setup do you guys prefer? Let me know in the comments. All right, so let's get our geek on even more. I've got this kind of nice diagram to share with you guys, which is a comparison of Forest's style under Ange versus under Nuno in certain kind of key things that we can look at. Now, in general, Forest are playing a completely different style, newsflash to you guys, from under Nuno, and we are already seeing that. Nuno was stronger at aerial duels won and long passes. That was kind of more his style. Forest under Ange are completely different. Look at the build-up attacks. Look at the pass sequence. Look at the possession, for example. All those are way, way, way up the chart in compared to how we were playing under Nuno versus Ange. In fact, a fun fact for you here is it is the first time since we've been back in the Premier League that Forest have completed 500 plus passes in a Premier League game, and that was against Burnley. And we registered our highest possession in the Premier League at 63.3%. Now, possession and passes mean nothing if you're not getting results, but it's clear. But here, I'm not talking about like, does this win a game or that win a game? I'm really talking about styles and talking about how AngeBall all fits in. So I thought that would be interesting for you guys to see. It's clear to see there's been a dramatic shift in style, in the way Forest are playing and everything else when it comes to Nuno Ball. What I will say is that the players are still adapting to it. It's just too much to do in 2 weeks' time. And this is one of the reasons why I'm not turning on Ange yet. Like, I can see there will be time to change. Do I think in the long term it's going to be the right decision? I don't know. I can't sit here. The sample size is too small. But I just wanted you guys to get maybe a little bit more of an understanding of what Ange is trying to do, how that compares to Nuno, and how it compares about what he was setting up at Spurs. There are changes, small sample size, I keep saying that, I know, to what he did at Spurs, where he's compacting the midfield now under Forest more than he did at Spurs. He's not double inverting the fullbacks as he did against Spurs. So there are some tweaks. So people say, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but if this is the way he's going to go, let's give him a little time to see how it establishes. But time is not a luxury you have in the Premier League. Hope you guys found this interesting. Get your thoughts in the comments down below. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Make sure you're following us on Instagram. Links pinned in the comments. Speak to you soon on You Reds.